Hundreds of homes are inspected for loose or faulty gas fixtures after a blast in northern Taiwan Saturday. The results of Guatemala's presidential election are in, with no clear winner. A runoff has been set for August. Record-breaking temperatures scorched cities around the world, impacting human health. Plus, a new exhibit takes visitors on a journey into the natural beauty of Taiwan with 360-degree time-lapse photography. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chen. Gas fixtures in hundreds of homes are under inspection after an explosion in Taiwan's northern city of Zhubei. Inspectors have found loose valves and hoses that could lead to dangerous gas leaks. As officials work to prevent more blasts, they're also trying to understand what happened to cause the first one. John Van Trieste has the latest.
Combing through the aftermath, investigators in Hsinchu County want to know what went wrong with the gas supply on Saturday. The Hsinchu Gas Company says a stone-like foreign object got into a pipe, causing damage and a spike in pressure. The result was a series of gas leaks and fires that injured 6 people. That included an explosion that destroyed an apartment. One resident suffered burns over 90% of his body. Officials also say there were reports of a possibly related leak Sunday.
灯都融掉了，然后这边也是，这整个铝门都毁掉了。
County chief and chair of the company's board, Yang Wen-ke, is back from a trip to Japan to manage the response.
我们表达万分的歉意，那我们会负责一切的损失跟医药的负担。
And the local prosecutor's office is looking for evidence of negligence. It won't say whether it plans to question Yang. Safety experts say gas pipes and equipment are built to withstand higher than normal pressure as a precaution. This has led disaster prevention groups to suspect the affected buildings had old or loose gas fittings.
接到瓦斯的炉具等等这个部分，也有可能原本就没有很密合的话，那本来没有超过预期的压力，它可能还不至于松脱。可是如果压力突然变大了，让本来就已经不是那么密合的管线导致松脱，也有可能。那这些可能是我们一开始无法预期。
Gas explosions like this are rare, but not unprecedented. In 2014, an underroad pipeline in the southern city of Kaohsiung exploded with such force it blew a car 3 stories into the air. 32 people died and hundreds were injured. Back in Zhubei, investigators are searching for answers as the cleanup continues, with authorities on high alert for any further leaks. Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's biggest power suppliers are in a tough spot. State-run electricity and gas companies, Taipower and CPC Corporation, may be forced to raise wages, even though both ran massive losses last year. Joyce Zeng explains.
Keeping these lights on across Taiwan might be getting more expensive. For the past year, gas and electricity prices have been artificially low for consumers here, but it's proving difficult to keep them down. Taiwan's biggest suppliers of gas and electricity are state-run companies CPC and Taipower, respectively. As part of a cabinet-approved bill to support the public sector, both are now under pressure to raise wages. The problem is, both CPC and Taipower suffered $6 billion in losses from the last year.
去年造成的亏损造成我们财务的负担，我们当然还是希望可以得到一个整体的。 来自于政府的支持哈。
The two companies' losses came from absorbing much of last year's price hikes in energy resources, something that the government required them to do. Energy prices around the world shot up in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and as the war continues, there are fears of another round of instability. This would be a problem for Taiwan, since most of its power comes from imported fossil fuels. That's why the government is considering a $3 billion boost to save Taipower, but hasn't mentioned any plans for the gas company. Prices are not the only issue with powering Taiwan. The island nation is no stranger to blackouts. Last March, nearly 40% of the country lost power, and during the summer, there were 22 more outages. Though Taiwan's all-important tech parks and industry giants like TSMC and Foxconn were largely unaffected, frequent power failures expose weaknesses in the energy supply of Asia's most important chip-making hub. Energy officials say these cracks can't be plugged with just $3 billion extra. As a government subsidy for Taipower pens, the company will still be required to align with other state-run firms to raise wages to account for inflation. What that means is it's likely to get more expensive to keep Taiwan running. Andy Xue and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
A U.S. aircraft carrier is making a rare stop in Vietnam. It comes as the U.S. looks to strengthen ties with the Southeast Asian nation. The USS Ronald Reagan will be docked in the city of Da Nang until Friday. This is only the third time a U.S. aircraft carrier has stopped in a country since the end of the Vietnam War. It's happening just weeks after Vietnam protested Chinese ships passing through their waters. Their presence increased fears about Beijing's growing power in the region. The results from Guatemala's hotly contested election are in. None of the presidential candidates got the number of votes needed to win. The two top candidates will head to a runoff in August. Harold Hughes reports.
Polls are now closed in Guatemala's tumultuous presidential election, but the early count indicates no clear winner, which means Sandra Torres y Bernardo Arevalo, the top two candidates, are headed to a runoff in August. The lead up to this year's vote has not been easy.
Siempre votamos por el menos peor, ¿verdad? Creo que estamos igual o peor que años anteriores. La mayoría hemos venido votando de esa forma, ¿verdad? Lastimosamente. Y últimamente, pues, cada vez hay menos intención de salir a votar.
In Guatemala, voting is mandatory, but that did not stop voters from sitting out in a move designed to show a rejection of the system. With the majority of the votes counted, the number of blank and null votes was at 25%. Public trust in the electoral process is low. A mixture of corruption charges, jailed journalists, and a lack of transparency left voters apathetic. 3 popular opposition candidates were disqualified early in the run-up. The decisions were heavily criticized. The disqualifications drew increased scrutiny when the same court voted to permit Zuri Rios, daughter of Efraín Rios Montt, a former dictator convicted of genocide, to run for public office. This decision went against a specific law that explicitly prohibits family members of individuals involved in a coup from holding political positions.
Las decisiones que han tenido y que han emitido de alguna forma afectan la credibilidad y como la confianza en la democracia. Definitivamente este proceso electoral, estas elecciones tienen más sombras que luces.
Despite fears that Guatemala is moving towards authoritarianism, the country remains one of Taiwan's 13 diplomatic allies, a relationship that leading presidential contender Sandra Torres has vowed to continue if she wins. It's the third attempt at the top spot for the former First Lady. She will be facing leftist politician Bernardo Arevalo in the runoff, a surprise development as he wasn't projected to do better than Zuri Rios. The candidates will spend the next 2 months campaigning for what they hope to be the decisive round. But with almost a quarter of voters deciding to sit out the electoral process, what is at stake in Guatemala may be the state of democracy itself. Leon Lien and Harold Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
To find out more about Taiwan and China's interest in Guatemala, Harold Hughes spoke to Wen T. Song, non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council Global China Hub.
What interest would China have in pursuing relations with Guatemala?
It's natural that China at this moment in time will want to exert even more diplomatic pressure on Taiwan by, as much as possible, poaching away more diplomatic allies from Taiwan, or at least to find ways to build common cause with elites and population in those societies such as Guatemala. So it's in that sense that China has both a diplomatic interest in engaging with Guatemala, but just as importantly, it has ideological interest there as well, in terms of how if China can poach away Guatemala, that will go some way in terms of proving China's case in that cross-strait battle over hearts and minds, if you will.
In the past, China has used the Belt and Road Initiative to entice countries to switch relations with Taiwan. Do you see them doing that with Guatemala?
I think Taiwan, if Taiwan wants to compete effectively, it needs to make sure that its foreign aid programs are both sensible in quantity, but just as importantly, it has to be high in quality as well. That they need to be structured in such a way as to not only, so to speak, give the recipient countries fish, but also teach them how to fish, and to do so in a way that advances rather than corrupts the local society's governance models.
That was Harold Hughes speaking with Wen-Ti Song, non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council Global China Hub. It's World Drug Day when countries around the world look for ways to curb illegal drug use and stamp out trafficking. How is Taiwan faring in this area? Bing Wang takes a look.
Presidential recognition for a parade of activists and academics fighting drug abuse in Taiwan. It's the United Nations International Day Against Drug and Illicit Trafficking. And while Taiwan is not a part of the UN, the country is marking the day by celebrating its accomplishments in its fight against the illegal trade.
2017年颁布新世代反毒策略后，我们以跨部会、跨地方、跨领域的整体作战的方式，希望能够达到抑制毒品再犯、降低毒品新生的两大目标。
From 2016 to 2020, the number of drug users in Taiwan has lowered by 18,000 people, a drop of 30%. And last year, Taiwanese officials seized nearly 10,000 kilograms of illegal drugs, a minuscule amount compared to other countries with similar populations. In Myanmar and Thailand, where illegal drugs are more rampant, authorities observed the Global Day Against Drugs by burning more than 25 tons of confiscated drugs. Beyond seeing it as a crime, UN officials are calling for drug abuse to be treated as a social issue, promoting a campaign called Support, Don't Punish.
296 million people used drugs in a single year, while more than 39 million of them suffered from drug use disorders. On this International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking, we are calling for drug responses that are rooted in empathy, built on science and focused on people.
In keeping with that, Taiwan is putting more money towards rehabilitating drug addicts and offering them assistance afterwards to find housing. The goal, officials say, is to reintegrate them with society, recognizing that there's more to battling illegal drugs than law enforcement. Scott Huang and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, we see what happens when the Olympics meet esports. Stay tuned for more.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. For more stories from Taiwan and around the rest of the world, please visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow us on social media.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Over the weekend, a Russian private army made up mostly of mercenaries staged a military coup inside Russia. Within 24 hours, the Wagner Group got within 200 kilometers of Moscow before a deal was struck with the government. But the group's rapid gains have many questioning the security of the country's leadership. Jaime Okan reports.
A Russian military helicopter firing flares to evade a missile. An explosion at a fuel depot, and troops fortifying the capital city. These were just some of the chaotic images seen in Russia over the weekend as the country's largest private army turned against the country's leadership. The Wagner Group is led by this man, Yevgeny Prigozhin. He says he sent Wagner forces deep into Russian territory after a substantial amount of his troops were killed by a Russian missile strike.
Это не военный переворот, это марш справедливости. Наши действия никак не мешают войскам.
The Wagner Group was hired to fight as shock troops in Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Their most notable offensive was in the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, where they made significant gains compared to their regular army counterparts. But on Saturday, Wagner forces crossed the border back into Russia, towards the city of Rostov. This is one of Russia's main logistics hubs for its invasion of Ukraine and home to several military bases. But in just a few hours, Wagner tanks and soldiers had fully occupied the city. They were greeted with cheers from the people living there, images which were of huge concern to the Russian government.
Мы находимся в штабе, 7 часов 30 минут утра, под контролем военные объекты Ростова, в том числе аэродром.
In response, Russian President Vladimir Putin issued an arrest warrant for Prigozhin and described the group's actions as mutiny.
Мы не дадим этому повториться. Защитим и наш народ, и нашу государственность от любых угроз, в том числе от внутреннего предательства. А то, с чем мы столкнулись, это именно предательство.
After taking Rostov in the south, Wagner forces then began moving north up the M4 highway to the city of Voronezh. This road is a straight shot to the capital Moscow, and on the way, Russian forces opened fire on the group. In the ensuing fight, a fuel depot exploded, and Wagner forces reportedly shot down 6 Russian helicopters and 1 airplane. The Wagner Group was just 200 kilometers away from Moscow when a deal with the Russian government was reached.
Сейчас наступил тот момент, когда кровь может пролиться. Поэтому, понимая всю ответственность за то, что будет пролита русская кровь с одной из сторон, мы разворачиваем свои колонны и уходим в обратном направлении в полевые лагеря согласно плану.
Yevgeny is now reportedly in exile in Belarus, and all charges against him have been dropped. Analysts around the world are highlighting the speed at which his rebellion took place. In less than 24 hours, Wagner forces managed to pose a significant threat to Putin's leadership. And all of this happened as Ukraine makes steady gains in its ongoing counteroffensive against Russian forces.
This is a push for Putin to think about the restructuring, or perhaps restructuring the Ministry of Defense and putting somebody much more capable with military experience, or with greater military experience than Defense Minister Shoigu. But it's difficult because it's difficult to find people whom you can trust and who will not stab you in the back, especially in a country like Russia.
Wagner forces are now headed back to Ukraine as part of Russia's invasion forces. But while it was short-lived, this 24-hour rebellion almost triggered a war inside Russia's borders, something that will be deeply worrying for Vladimir Putin. Alex Chen and Jaime Okan for TaiwanPlus.
Record-breaking heat waves are scorching cities in Mexico, China, and India. And while some of us may welcome the summer sun, for many, the extremely hot weather can be deadly. Sally Jensen has more.
Air temperatures around the world are smashing records for June. These heat maps show where temperatures are higher than usual for this time of year. Specifically on the US-Mexico border, in Spain, and in northeastern China. Just last week, Beijing broke its June temperature record, hitting almost 42 degrees Celsius. The heat wave in China's capital is expected to continue through this week, and many locals are worried.
希望广大的这几天，广大的就是这个年纪大的人尽量少出行，搁家待着就行了。外面天气太热，体力不好嘞，血压高嘞就容易中暑。
In Spain, the hottest part of Europe, workers at an outdoor festival are struggling in a heat wave that's more intense than in the past.
Este año no estábamos preparados para la ola de calor. Estamos a 40 grados, entonces los artistas sufrieron una hipotimia, el público no podría sentarse a verles.
Temperatures of 40 degrees Celsius and above can be deadly. In India, authorities say the heat last week killed 96 people. Scientists say human-caused climate change has made this kind of brutal heat wave more likely.
It feels 2 degrees warmer, experience this kind of a heat wave about once in 5 years. Okay, so it's not that rare, but without climate change, it would have been 30 times rarer.
Earth's climate is changing because humans are releasing more greenhouse gases into the air, mostly by burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. And while fossil fuel companies made record-breaking profits last year, this year's record-breaking heat is causing millions around the world to suffer. Temperature records for June have so far not been broken here in Taipei. But people are watching closely as the mercury edges upwards. And as parts of the world sizzle, many are worried about what the coming months will bring. Devin Tsai and Sally Jensen in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Activists have criticized a new $100 billion pledge to fight climate change. The new global financing pact was agreed by world leaders in Paris on Friday. The pact aims to support low-income countries most affected by the climate crisis. It will also support a fund for biodiversity and the protection of forests. But climate activists staged a protest on the sidelines of the summit. They say the pledge is insignificant compared to the amount of money governments invest in fossil fuel companies.
People across the world are not as important as their greed and as their profit. So it's very clear that we need that debt cancellation. We need a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty and to stop investing in fossil fuels completely.
An immersive photography exhibition showcasing the natural beauty of Taiwan is on display in Taipei 101. It's based on the work of Malaysian photographer Fong Yap Hoi, who documented dozens of places over a space of 7 years. Cindy Chi spoke with Fong about his work and what it took to make this exhibition a reality.
From starry nighttime skies to majestic mountain ranges and mysterious ocean views, this is Amazing Formosa, an immersive exhibition by Malaysian photographer Fong Yap Hoi. Fong's works combine 360-degree shots with time-lapse photography to encapsulate the beauty of places around Taiwan. The exhibition is currently on show at Taipei 101, but it's been a long and difficult journey to get here. 26-year-old Fong discovered his interest in photography in 2016, while he was still a full-time student in Taichung.
当时我就完全不会摄影，然后我就去开始自学，然后慢慢的就觉得越来越好玩，然后有兴趣就开始钻研。我不想要让我的大学生活留白，我想要做一点就是可以留在台湾的东西。
Pursuing his passion, Fong says he traveled over 100,000 kilometers throughout Taiwan to get his shots. In addition to his studies and travels, he also spent countless hours planning and preparing so he could capture the perfect moments.
这个真的是要靠经验累积，也就是你不断的去，然后了解环境，了解了它的四季会带来什么变化，或者是一直用时间来沉淀。有一些像是合欢山的这个地方，我已经去了应该有200、300次。 然后每一次都会有不同的想法或者是感悟，所以我就会不断的一直去。
Breathtaking though the photos are, getting these shots was sometimes perilous work.
我在去拍摄这些路程上会有不少很惊险的过程，例如有遇到灵异事件，或者是地震，然后山崩。
As a student, Fong had very little money to pursue his passion. His parents only supported him with basic pocket money and even told him to stop due to the dangers he might encounter.
他们就给我2条路来选。第一条路就是我可以继续的去玩摄影，但是所有的费用他们都不再给予我，我要自己去想办法。第二条就是我要把所有的摄影的设备给卖了，然后他们会继续支持我在台湾的留学的一切费用。
However, after uploading some of his work online, Fong gained a huge amount of attention. This helped his parents better understand what he was doing. During the 7 years he worked on the project, Fong held many part-time jobs to pay for the $96,000 worth of equipment he needed. But all the money, time and effort he put into his work has paid off in the form of this exhibition. which allows audiences to immerse themselves in Taiwan's stunning natural landscapes and scenery.
但是台湾本岛光害多嘛，所以一定要去到外岛或者非常高的山才可以拍到干净的星空。
Amazing Formosa will be on show at Taipei 101 until July 9th. Fong is continuing his photographic journey, traveling around New Zealand. He hopes one day he can head to Antarctica and capture the natural beauty of the barren land's icy landscapes. John Su and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Next, the world of sports, or rather esports. The International Olympic Committee has wrapped up the first ever Olympic Esports Week. Reporter Eric Tsai has more.
Open the door and take home the trophy. One big kick can do it for Nigel, and he finds it. What a performance there.
Crowds cheer at the virtual Taekwondo competition. It's the inaugural Olympic Esports Live Finals in Singapore. And Taekwondo was just one of the many virtual sports on display. They range from cycling
but look at Pierre go here as it's Bates who's been
to tic-tac-toe archery and even dance. This event is one of 15 goals that the International Olympic Committee announced in 2021, hoping to attract a younger audience to promote Olympic values. Esports are not officially part of the Olympic Games, though there have been talk of including them in the 2028 event. Chen and Eric Tsai for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally today, we leave you with images of an annual ghost festival in northeast Thailand. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.